You have to kind of get out and you have to get on with your life. If travel is one of those things that people want to do, I highly recommend it.
There's a difference between being a traveler and being a tourist.
When you're in the midst of the fog, it's hard to think clearly.
Fell in love with the culture, the freedom, just a new way of living. When you're in the same environment that the pain happens, there's no way for you to get clarity.
I never would have been able to do that had I been home because of all the other distractions, because all the other reminders while I've been back in the fog.
The importance of you putting yourself in the environments, because the environment breeds the people that you need or you require.
Every step I take towards that person takes a step towards me. So when I make a change and I get better, I take a step and then that person steps towards me.
That's deep.
So one day I'm going to take so many steps that me and that person will be the same.
And I'm not knocking people that go to the bar or go wherever, but if you want people that like to do that, go there. You'll find them there. But don't expect to find someone that likes XYZ trying to find them in 1, 2, 3. Like, that's not going to work.
Life isn't a fairy tale. It's a journey full of twists, turns, and unexpected storms. Surviving the Yellow Brick Road is raw and unfiltered, dedicated for people who are navigating the hardest chapters in their lives: divorce, loss, reinvention, and everything in between. Welcome to the show.
Do you think traveling changed how you see yourself? And how did exploring the new places shift your views on life and love?
Yes, 100% it changes your views on life and love. I think traveling, you learn to see what's important and what's not important, right? It gives you different perspective. So when you go to different places, you realize that what you thought was important back where you were from is not as important as what other people, based on where they live and what they have to deal with, find important. So it 100% changes your perspective. And then on love, when you travel, you find that the things that people love in countries are taken for granted where you come from. So I 100% think that it changes you. Steve, thoughts?
Well, I mean, traveling, if we're talking about traveling after divorce, then there's a couple of things. So number one, traveling, it changes your environment. You know, a lot of times when you're in a situation, especially if you're going through a traumatic, emotional situation, a change of scenery helps because everything around you reminds you of the situation that you're in. So being able to travel somewhere else, totally unfamiliar, where you have to learn where you're going, where you're looking at the streets, where you're looking at the people, it kind of takes your mind away from the familiar. So if you're going through something, that's a good way to kind of move your mind a little bit away from what you're going through. It makes you focus on other things. As an example, if you travel to a place where people speak a different language and you don't speak that language, now you have to kind of really focus on communicating, reading signs, learning little things. Yeah. So it takes you away from your current environment, which can be a very good thing.
Yeah, and I think you raise a good point, right? I think it's not necessarily divorce or whatever. I think it's going through a traumatic experience, right? And that could be that divorce is one of them, but you have other life traumatic experiences that will put you in a space of uncertainty, of fear. And I think that traveling piece, and you know what, it's hard to do because I remember when I was going through my episodes, right? It wasn't really on my mind, like traveling is the last thing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't come up as the first thing you should be doing because at a point it feels like you're running away from the problem. You know what I mean? It's a different mindset that I had to switch to because it wasn't the running away, it was the unplugging. At least from the traumatic experience. I think that's what the travel did, at least in from my experience.
Yeah. I think I'm pretty much saying the same thing because when you change your environment, you do have to unplug. You have no choice in some instances, depending on where you travel and the type of travel you do, but to unplug a little bit because now you have to focus on where you are and the situation around you.
Okay, so did unplugging and being surrounded by different cultures and seeing how other people live and think help you process your own journey and help you find a new sense of direction?
Not really. Well, I think what it helped to do, it just helped to refocus. a little bit. It didn't take your mind totally away from what you're going through, because you're still going through it, even when you're traveling. But looking at other people, I think what it does for me is I'm a social person. So when I go places, I try to make sure that I'm in social gatherings. If there's events going on, I'm there, I'm meeting people. That's my goal when I go places. So everywhere that I go, I know someone there. So it gives me a chance to meet new people, to have conversations with different people. And so that's what I find. Not necessarily it takes me, the way other people live is taking me kind of away from my situation, but I'm just kind of enjoying and kind of immersing myself in another culture.
Yeah, I think also the change of perspective it also comes along with it, right? I remember going to Brazil, and I remember meeting up with some guys, some ex-military guys that retired, and Brazil is famous for that. Like, if you go to Brazil, anybody that goes to Brazil, there's a lot of retired military vets, right, that go there. So there's a couple of places that a lot of them go to. Brazil is one. The other one is Panama is another big place that a lot of people go. But Brazil especially, apparently back in, I don't know the military history here, but there was a base close by, and a lot of the Navy guys used to go there for weekends. And then when they ended up retiring, they ended up going to live in Brazil. So I met a lot of ex-military guys, and in sitting and talking to them and hearing their story, just, the things that they went through during the course of their military career, just hearing all of the things that they've been through, and how, being around the beach, being around that energetic atmosphere, being around the gorgeous women, right? I mean, all of those things help them sort of with their whole PSD episode, all of those things that they kind of go through after going through such a tough career. But it's the perspective you gain from others, and then you also hear other people's sort of war stories, if I want to call it that, right? What they survived, what they've been through, and how they decided to live their life going forward. So I think there's a key thing in here around your environment, and like your environment meaning where you place yourself, because the environment's going to drive the type of people that the environment attracts a certain type of people. And the certain type of people have a certain type of mind frame. So if you go to certain places, whether that you're traveling, 2,000 miles away, 15,000 miles away, I think the importance in this is the importance of your environment and where you place yourself and the type of people it attracts. But perspective gets changed because the environment you're in attracts people with a different perspective. That's my kind of take on that.
Okay, so what's one moment from your travels that sticks with you as a turning point? Did it give you new perspective on something?
What's one moment? Oh, yeah. So this is another Brazil story. So when I was in Brazil, so I went to Rio, and I went to Sao Paulo and Rio. So Sao Paulo's city, all city vibes. And then Rio is beach, Copacabana, and all of those things that you heard. And my B&B that I stayed was close to the beach. But there was this like alleyway, not an alleyway, but like an island. So like the road goes straight and then it splits with like an island, and there's like trees and grass and stuff like that. And from my window, I can see that island, right? And I remember seeing, and Brazil is very poor if you haven't been, right? So there was like a family. What I made out of it was like a family, and there were two teenagers there. There was a guy and a girl. They looked like brothers and sisters because she was trying to take a bath outside, right? So this is on the island where the grass and stuff is concrete, there's benches. And the brother, they had a bucket, and the bucket had water in it, and she was bathing, and she was naked, right? But the brother took a blanket. He had a blanket, and he held the blanket like this so no one can see her while she bathed out in the open. And I stood there, looked like I saw that, like, wow, like, you know what I mean? It just gives you perspective that look what the brother's doing for his sister right there out in the open, right? So that she can bathe. Look at how poor they were, and look how hard it must have been for them to go through all of that. But he's still protective of his little sister. So to me, that was like a turning point. It wasn't a turning point, but the question around like what changed your outlook was love and caring has nothing to do with money and materialistic things, right? Because the love was there for the brother, for the sister, and the protection and making sure that she was okay. It was right there in the open. You know what I mean? And if he wasn't there, and it was literally like a blanket. It was a big blanket, and he just held it, and she was bathing behind the blanket. And then as she got dressed, he would turn it, and like he was doing all of this movement just so no one can see his little sister naked. And then when she got dressed, you know, she dried off and she put on her, and I sat. I'm not. What a back up here. Not like I was standing there watching the whole thing, right? But I mean, it was a moment that I saw because it looked awkward. And then I realized, oh, that must be brother and sister. Oh, she's actually bathing. So that was a change. That was something that hit me around, you know, things that are important, and love and caring and protectionism. And none of that has to do with materialistic and buying. And so that was one of my things that I learned, that I saw that was sort of changing.
What role did connecting with other locals on your travels play during your trips?
Well, connecting with locals, I think, is important to me. I'm not the type of person that will go somewhere and look for a commune of people that are exactly like me. So I'm not looking for travel groups necessarily.
You're not looking for the tourist crowd.
Not the travel groups from where I am, which is the United States. So I'm not looking for that. I'm not looking for tourist groups, although I don't mind them in short stints.
Yeah.
What I'm looking for are connections. A connection with someone from where I'm at, right? So when I was in Bolivia, I was able to make connections with people in Bolivia, even though I speak very limited Spanish. I was able to make connections, people that I keep in touch with to this day. You know, wherever I go, I was in St. Kitts, you know, I still keep in contact with the gentleman who was driving me around. I still keep in contact with.
Those are the best guys, actually. The taxi guys that actually, or the driver guys, you know what I mean? Like they're always willing to help you out and like give you the WhatsApp and contact and whatever. But
so he has a girlfriend that lives in Maryland, and I'm helping him navigate how to get to the United States. So, you know, there's also a cute couple in St. Kitts, older couple that was also driving me around and showing me, they were just supposed to take me one place, and they waited for me to get out of that place, and they took me around the island just because.
That's
right?
dope.
So it's the connections that you make. You know, I feel as though if I go somewhere and I come back and I haven't made a connection, at least one, then I didn't do what I was supposed to do. Because life is about people at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned something really interesting, right? There's a difference between being a traveler and being a tourist, right? And most people go, and when you go places, they are tourists, meaning you're on the resort, you know, you're locked into the breakfast is at 9 till 10, dinner's at 5 till 7, right? And then there's the traveler, right? The traveler is the one that's like, no, I'm out. Like I get up, I'll get a light breakfast, but you know, I'm hitting the road. I'm going out, and I'm gonna go figure out what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna learn something, which I think is a big difference between. So when we talk about traveling, going through traumatic things, I remember going to Cabo, and when I went to Cabo, I did sort of like a semi-resort, and that was like fresh from the divorce. And I think there's times when you need that, I don't want to do shit, you know, I don't want to do anything. I want to sit down, I want to get a drink, I want to eat, I want to sleep, I want to go sit on the beach and just veg out. And I think there's time for that, but then there's also time for that exploration, because that's where you learn a lot of things about yourself. I think when you're more relaxed in like a resort, that's more self-reflection time, right? Because there's not a lot of shit to do. You're not out and about. So that's where the self-reflection comes in. Going out, that's where the discovery comes in, right? I don't think the discovery comes while you're sitting on a resort staring at the beach, right? I mean, that's just my perception from my experience. But I think those are the two key differences between where you would go and doing different things.
Okay, in what ways did traveling and being in a new environment allow you to process your emotions differently than you could have at home?
Environments, right? I think, again, the key thing here is environment. When you think about your environment, I put this analogy in place. So think of like people that want to work out and get in shape. People that want to work out and get in shape, majority of people fail at it because they try to do the shit from home, right? Home is not the environment to work out. right? Home is for home stuff. That's why when you go to the gym, people are like, well, why am I paying for gym membership? I can just buy the equipment. It's not just the equipment that motivates you, it's the other people that motivate you. So being around that type of energy and that kind of and those kinds of people with that motivation changes your attitude and the amount of effort you put towards it. Because if you're at the gym and this guy's going, been on the treadmill for 50 minutes and you just got on for 2 and you're dead tired, like you want to give up.
You try to pump out another minute.
Yeah, right? Like you're gonna be like, nah, like, bro, I can't have this guy, like, I'm gonna stay on this treadmill a little bit. If you're at home, you know what I mean? Like the phone rings, the doorbell rings, yeah, it's over. Like you're not, you know what I mean? 10 minutes later, you're watching TV with popcorn. Like you're not focused.
Did being in a new environment allow you to process your emotions differently than you could have at home?
Yes, absolutely. It helps you to, for me anyway, when you're in the midst of the fog, it's hard to think clearly.
Yeah.
I was sitting on a beach on one of my travels, just trying to figure things out. And I was able to think clearly. That morning I got up, I worked out, had breakfast, did a bunch of other things. And in the afternoon, I was sitting on a beach and I was just thinking clearly. I was looking out into the sea and I was just thinking about a bunch of different things. And I was able to get a level of clarity that I was not able to get when I was home.
Yeah.
So much so that not only did I think about things I wanted to do in the future and how I wanted to move forward, I was able to actually write my will that I have been avoiding forever.
Yeah.
It's just like not a topic. It's not, and that's not necessarily a responsible thing to do to just kind of avoid your will. But I had been doing it. But I was able to take out a pen and I had a notebook there and I just wrote and I just kept writing. And I never would have been able to do that had I been home because of all the other distractions, because all the other reminders. I've been back in the fog. So yeah, changing an environment helped me to kind of get clarity, get some quiet time and get some clarity so I could get some things done. And I got something done like a will I did in about a half an hour, just pure writing, just writing and getting it done. Something I have been putting off and thinking about.
Yeah, I think I think you get that oh shit moment, right? Oh shit meaning like, oh shit, you're sitting there when you're outside of the environment or the normal environments, you get that oh snap, like that moment hits you where when you're in the same environment that the pain happens, right? There's no way for you to get clarity. I mean, I find that like super hard to get clarity. I mean, I'll add, I have a friend of mine whose spouse passed, right? So he's been with his wife for many, many years and she passed. And he's been finding it like super hard to move on. And I remember I was talking to him one day and, he was like, it's hard for him at home and she passed at the house and all that. And I was like, bro, you got to sell the fucking house. Like you need to move out, you know what I mean? And it was harsh for me to say that to him, but I'm like, you're enduring the pain of what you've been through. And in my example, when my home came for sale, so, divorce happened. And for those who haven't been through a divorce, asset split happens, right? You lose half your shit and you have to split half of it. Okay. No matter what it is you have, anything acquired during the course of the marriage is considered I can't say this word, Steve. Marital property, right? Marital property. So the day you get married, whatever you have, I think the only exception, if I'm correct by law, is if there was some inheritance, right? But anything else is automatically together in the marriage. When divorce happens, all those assets get split. Assets, home, business, anything that is of value gets split. And typically one of the hard things in this is your home. And in my example, when I was thinking through this, do you sell your home, right? You got all your memories there, you have all of these things there, do you sell it? And there's a piece of you that wants to keep it because of the memory. And there's another piece of you that's like, fuck no, right? Like, so going back to my friend who I was giving the advice to, I said to him, bro, you need to sell the place and you need to get a new spot, right? You need to create new memories because basking in the pain, right? Like basking in the pain is not a good thing. So for me, I ended up selling my house. Right. And as hard as it was, and it was, you raise your kids in it, there's history in it, but the history of what you've been through the good and the bad is there. So I ended up selling my house at the end of it, right? As hard as that was, but I think that was the best decision because it helped me, again, talking about environments and how much environments impact your subconscious, it helped me kind of rebuild new things and new memories.
How can travel help redefine your priorities and goals post-divorce?
Let's see. So I think for some, well, for me anyway, it helped to prioritize things because I started to prioritize. When you see the world, all of a sudden, the stuff that you're going through doesn't seem to be so big.
Right.
It seems there are other things that seem to be a lot bigger and more important than you and what you're going through. And so from there, you kind of reprioritize and you understand the world is a big place. And you and what you're going through is so small, and in the grand scheme of things, it's so insignificant, right? But in order for me to gain that perspective, I had to travel because I had to see it, right? You know, as long as I'm sitting in the same house, going to the same places, then my world is small, and my problems are big, right? And once I started traveling, I start seeing the world and everything is so big and it makes my problems seem smaller as a result. So there was no way I could look up at the pyramids and still feel the same way that my problems were so immense. Right. Everything just seems so small. Right. Going around, when you travel around, you know, you see certain things or you see a landmark and you're like, man, what I'm going through is really, in the grand scheme of things, nothing. So it helped to reprioritize, put a different perspective, but reprioritize certain things just based on the perspective that what I'm going through in the grand scheme of things is really not as big as I thought. Even though it's a traumatic event, it's still not as big as and not as important as you initially thought. So now I'm thinking, well, if that's not as big as I thought, now that's small. Let me start focusing on the bigger things. You know, the things that are more important. This is the big world. Do I want to build a business? Do I want to get some property, other places? You start thinking bigger than your actual issues and problems.
Yeah. I think for me, it came, the realization changed when, you know, you're sitting on a beach in Costa Rica and the beach is like 10 feet from you and you're on a beach chair and you're like, what the fuck am I doing? Right? Like, what am I actually chasing? So it changes your perspective in the things that you thought were goals are not that important anymore. And then you end up defining and finding new goals. So my perspective changed to the point of like, A, I need to be doing this more often, right? From a travel perspective. B, I need to focus on less possessions. You know, a lot of guys that I met as well that ended up either moving or relocating or going to places that they ended up living that they really enjoyed. I met a friend when I went to Colombia, right? And he'd been through some traumatic things personally. So it wasn't divorce, but you know, it wasn't loss of anyone, but you know, trauma and traumatic things in life happens all over the board, right? Anyway, he went to Colombia for the first time and he's from Atlanta. And I remember talking to him and he said, Faye, I went down to Colombia, spent a week, fell in love with it, fell in love with the culture, the freedom, just the new way of living, right? Because in those places, work is not the priority. You know, they have like a beach culture. They have like an out, like going out culture. Everyone's out and about. And I remember he said he was there for like a week and a half. And then he loved it so much, he ended up extending it for like 2 weeks. And then after like 4 weeks there, he flew back to Atlanta, sold all his shit and started to make his way back. And he lives there permanently now. He lives permanently now in Colombia. And he said he loves it to death. But it goes back to you reprioritizing, like what you thought was important is not anymore. And you end up finding and thinking about new purpose, like new things that really excite you. And you don't learn that until you go to places and you like experience the culture and see, oh wow, this shit is totally different than what I thought it was. And you know, that's another point we never touched on. There's a lot of things that you hear and you read and you consume around travel. You know, I'm not talking about going to places where, you know, like Ukraine or places where there's wars and shit going on. But a lot of the notions of what people get around travel are based on social media. And I'd say like 75% of that shit is not true. You know, it's when you go there, you realize it's not actually like that. And I remember going to, I remember my first time I went to India and I told my mom I was going to India. And she was like, what? Like their brains just focus on these things, that these images and reflections that they think it's like.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember sending her some photos of India. Mm-hmm. Mind you, India isn't for the faint of heart, right? I mean, mm-hmm. you don't make that your first trip if you're gonna go travel. Mm-hmm. But the takeaway in that is that the difference is what's portrayed and what's being shown is totally different than when you're actually there and you get there and you check it out for yourself.
Does traveling after your divorce help you reconnect with aspects of yourself that were lost during your marriage?
It didn't help me to reconnect with the way I was prior. It helped me to imagine a new me. Like I started thinking about a new person, not the old person. That old person before I was married, for me, that was a cool guy. That was a guy, everything always seemed to just go right and for me until that point. But I didn't want to be that person. I'm a little older now, father, breadwinner up to that point during the marriage, holding down everything. And so I didn't want to be that person. I don't want to reconnect with that person. I want to be, there was somebody new I was supposed to be. And I think that's what travel helped me connect to. Who do you want to be going forward? And I think, and I've discussed this with you, Fabian, like, is that new person that I'm striving to be is a little bit different. He doesn't look the same. He's in much better shape. He dresses different. He drives a different car, hangs around different people, has different type of women around him. That's the person I'm trying to be. So when I travel, I see certain things and I see things that I fit into that person. It could be a way of dressing, it could be a way of moving, that kind of thing. So that's what it helped me do. It helped me to see more clearly that person that I wanted to.
Yeah, and I remember us talking about this, and I remember the conversation was something along the lines of, when you're with someone, when you're married, right? You are the father, the spouse, the husband, and all of these things. Let's say 5 things. You're the dad, the father. You're all of these things. That's what makes you, right? And when your relationship ends, because I think it goes beyond just marriage. When your relationship ends, you are built based on 3 or 4 different things that make you based on the relationship. When the relationship ends, that part of you dies, right? That part of you doesn't exist anymore. And I think a lot of people that struggle with getting over relationships, divorce, whatever it is because they continue to make that person live. They continue to live through that part of their MO. And I remember talking about this, and you have to replace that person. So in my example, I remember I used to, on Sundays, I used to cook every Sunday, cook meaning, I'm a great cook. Then go get stuff, make a dish, cook on Sunday, make sure that the family has a good meal, but lasagna, whatever. I'd make a bunch of stuff, go to the store, buy stuff, go home and cook. And post-divorce, I continue to do that. Right. And I remember maybe a couple months after, I was still doing it because it was just your natural part of you. And I remember to myself, why am I doing this anymore? I shouldn't be doing this. Right. That part of me doesn't exist anymore. So you have to learn to replace those parts you have to learn to replace those activities that you used to do that was your old you and replace them with the new you. Right. So that's the conversation we had. Because a lot of people get lost in that and they continue to actively participate in things they used to do in their old relationship. Right. And that end up destroying you because it's like that you're facilitating a personality of yourself that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. So the way I see, the way I saw that is, so I had I'm a bit old school. So I'm a bit older. I'm older than you, Fabian. So, there was a certain status and a certain prestige that went along with certain positions, right? So in my life, I had positions. So I was working, so I had a position in corporate America. I was a husband, so that was a position in society. So I had a status in society because I was married and had a family. Right. That was another status. Right. I was a father, a very involved father. So that was another status. Right. So I had all these jobs, right? Right. These jobs for me brought about certain prestige. I love these jobs. Right. I love being a father. I was a breadwinner. I was all of that. And it brought a certain prestige. Well, when those things end, what happens is for some of those jobs, you get fired.
Right.
So, you know, in my case, I kind of fired myself, but because I ended things, but you know, you're fired. You no longer work there.
Right.
And so that's one status symbol. Now you're down.
Right.
You're still a father. You're still a dad. Position changes a bit, you know, 1 week there, 1 week with me kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm a little demoted in that because I'm full, right? 24 hours, 365 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm kind of demoted in there,
Mm-hmm.
right? I still had a corporate job, but that's not as important.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm like, if I identified myself with those things, that's who I was.
Yeah.
That's who I was as a person.
Yeah.
All of those things made me, this is who I am.
Made you see. Yeah.
I know who I am in society. I have a certain position and status amongst my peers and that. So now when those things are gone, it's like some of those things, it's like, okay, where do I work now? Like,
Yeah.
what's my new position? Like, I just got fired for some, you know,
Yeah.
I don't get these jobs anymore,
Yeah.
prestigious jobs. Where do I go now? So now you have to figure out what is my new position?
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. So that's tough. So it's kind of a way what you're saying, but for me, you know, that's how I looked at it. And so now I have to reinvent myself.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a chef somewhere, as an example, you get fired. Now you have to go be an engineer. Like that's a whole different job.
Yeah.
So now it's like, okay, I'm not that anymore, and I have to go get another job, other positions as I see it.
Yeah.
And you know, that's tough.
Yeah.
You reinvent yourself.
Yeah. So how did what did you do to help with that? That's probably a follow-up question to it. Like, because that's a good point. Reinvention takes time and takes some self-reflection.
Mm-hmm.
So like what did you do? What were some of the things that you did that helped you, quote unquote, reinvent yourself? Or what do you continue to do to help you reinvent yourself?
Well, one of the things I did was travel. You know, like I said, I was sitting on the beach when I was telling you I wrote my will. I just wrote it out.
Yeah.
It's funny because I just kept writing and I wouldn't stop. It just all came out of my head. And I was thinking about it and it didn't stop. I had pages and pages.
Yeah.
Right, just written down. And also it helped me to figure out, well, if I'm not this person anymore with these few prestigious
Roles,
jobs,
right,
as I saw, because I'm, you know, before I was the minister of finance, I was the minister of transportation, minister, you know, of a whole bunch of things, and I don't have those jobs anymore. So who is this new person? Kind of like I was saying before. So there's a new person, and what does that new person look like? So I had to imagine in my head, who is the coolest?
Right. Who's the coolest Steve now?
The cool dude that's over there that everybody like has these other positions that looks this way, that dresses this way, that has these things, that moves in this way, that's always happy, you know, always positive. That's the person. You know, I had to make up a person, and that's the person I wanted to be. And so in order for me to be that person, I had to change some things. And I'm still going towards that person. But I always told myself, every step I take towards that person takes a step towards me. So when I make a change and I get better, I take a step. And then that person steps towards me.
That's deep.
So one day I'm going to take so many steps that me and that person will be the same. Right. So that's my journey now. You know, I'm still on that journey. I'm still trying to be that person. Change my routines, small things, little incremental changes. Almost every day. I make to get, and the closer that person, I take a step, that person takes a step. So over this time, the person that I was seeing that was way down there, like I could
like face to face with them.
I'm not face to face yet, but we're getting closer and closer and I see him. And I'm like, man, that dude's cool. That dude's cool. That's
cool.
the man right there. Yeah. So I'm getting closer to him. He's getting closer to me. So
I love that analogy. No, that's a great analogy. I think that piece in you being able to project or foresee or envision, that's probably the better word, right? Envision that person that you are becoming, right? And then making the attempts of the becoming, right? Making those forward steps in becoming and doing it in an incremental way, because I think a lot of people confuse change as being this huge mountain to climb. I mean, mountains are hard to climb, but that's why there's base camps, right? Because you don't do it all in one day, right? You go to a certain point and you rest, and you go to another certain point and you rest, and another certain point, and eventually you're at the top of the mountain. So I think the key in that piece is really taking those small incremental steps and making those small changes in your routine to help you get closer and face to face to that person you portrayed.
Like as an example, people that I used to meet on travel, I wouldn't really, years before, I keep in touch, but I kind of maybe keep in touch, maybe not.
Yeah.
Now I make it a point. I have a schedule. I make sure to have touch points with everyone, the international, a certain number of times a year.
Yeah.
Right? To keep that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Those incremental changes, and that has made a big difference.
Yeah. I mean, you get a whole group of, that just want to add that, right? You meet a whole group of individuals with so much different backgrounds from so much different places with a similar view in life, right? And like keeping that circle is critical. So it's not just the travel, it's also continuing that community when you come back or as you continue to travel. So it's not the one time you meet someone and then you have a great time and you learn something. It's about fostering that whole relationship, because that helps you along the journey. Yeah, and that's a great point. There's guys that I met 5-6 years ago on a trip that I haven't seen again because we haven't crossed trip paths, but they're on WhatsApp and we still talk all the time. You know what I mean? And I think keeping that community alive and keeping that connection is super important when you travel.
Absolutely.
But here's the question though. When you were going through your stuff and you decided to travel, did you get feedback, or was there kind of like and I'm talking about feedback from other people, you know what I mean? Like your kids, your family, your mom, like other people in your circle, when you're like, yeah, I'm going to go XYZ, right? Were they more like, what? Or were they more like, hey, yeah, you should go, like what was that interaction like for you when it came to you deciding to take a trip during the course of your challenges? Were they supportive, or were they like, bro, what the fuck? Like, are you going away? Like what?
No, they were basically supportive. Most people didn't say anything. One of the things I realized is that, as far as your children are concerned, staying around and wallowing in certain things and them seeing you kind of go down is not good for them.
Right.
When that part, initially they'd see that they know something's wrong.
Right.
They know that you're not 100%. They know that you're not yourself. That's not good for them, because then a lot of times what they'll do is they'll try to compensate and try to help you out. And they really should. That's not their job.
Right.
In my view. So when you can do things like travel and then send the pictures back to them that they can see, they're like, oh, wow.
You're living. Yeah.
Dad's he's all the way over here. Look at these pics. Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
And it helps them, because they're like,
you're not wallowing.
He's not down bad. He's out doing stuff. And I think one of the things, and that actually happened, and it was cool because one day I was listening to my daughter and she was bragging to her friends about where I had gone, and she sent them some of the pictures.
Right.
So it helped her to be like, oh, Dad's cool.
Proud. Yeah, to be proud.
She's like proud. She's like bragging to her friends. So so you have to kind of get out and you have to get on with your life. If travel is one of those things that people want to do, I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Along with, kind of getting in better shape and that kind of thing, improving yourself. But it definitely helps other people. And actually, it wasn't just my kids, with other people. When they know that I'm traveling and sometimes I would send pics back, then they're like, okay, we don't have to
You're good.
Take care of them.
Yeah, you're good.
Everybody's walking on eggshells around.
Yeah, that's a good
normally.
point.
Now they're like, oh, he's living. Oh, okay, he's good. Okay, we're good.
Yeah, so the impact on traveling, I think that's another key point. It's not just for you. It also benefits the people around you that are supportive of you, right? Because whether they're your immediate family or extended family, they see that you're still pursuing things, you're still enjoying life. You're not in the basement downing a gallon of vodka, right? I mean that's because they all worry about you, and you're like, obviously your loved ones should do that. you continuing to live and enjoy life, it gives them a sense of relief, and it gives them a sense that you're still enjoying life and you're still going out and doing things, because they all worry, are you surviving, right? Are you enduring what you've been through? So it is a great confirmation to other people that you're persevering.
You're tired of getting those calls. You doing all right? You okay?
Yeah.
Are you eating? Are you that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
And I gotta pick myself up.
Yeah.
This is not it.
As you went through your experience with relationships and all that, right? You go through, and this is for like many people. You've been through a long relationship with someone. It ends, right? And it ends in a way that it's not amicable, right? Amicable is the word here, right? And now you've been through the sort of journey of finding yourself and finding that person and becoming that person. And then eventually you get back around to dating, eventually, right? That's always something that eventually comes back around. As you kind of ventured into that space, like what was your initial what was your initial reaction to the pool of potentials?
Oh man, it was a mess, man.
Okay.
It was a mess. It was fun, but it was a mess. It was something that I probably should have taken a little bit more time before I got here. But it was like Hunger Games, man. It's survival, like Hunger Games, real.
Expand on that.
Man, listen, it was. I was just out here, man.
Yeah.
It was Hunger Games, it was gladiator games. I wasn't serious. I wasn't in any shape to be
serious, right?
Serious relationship.
Yeah.
But that's just the way it was, because that was the time that I was going through. When they say, it's kind of cliche to say, oh, you got to take time to heal and all that kind of stuff. But it's true.
Yeah.
But it's just a phase you go through.
Yeah.
Afterwards, trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
Was trust there? No, there was not a whole lot of trust there as far as something's going to work out long term.
Yeah.
But at that time, I was still a father, right?
Okay, right.
I'm dating is over here and everything else is over here. There was no meshing of the two.
Right.
There was no bringing somebody home to see
the
kids. No.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Unless it was going to be something serious, which it wasn't at that time.
Right.
There was none of that.
Right.
And that created an issue. Why can't I meet them? You can't meet them.
Right.
Absolutely not.
Right.
So
you're not there mentally, right?
I'm not there mentally.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to protect the kids too. So I'm like, no, you can't meet them.
Right.
So, just the whole dating thing, you go through a period right after, and then after that's over, after everything settles down, you have to look at it from a different vantage point. Now, for me, when I was younger, marriage was about family. You're going to get married, you're going to have children, you're going to live under a house, that kind of thing. Now that I've already done that, the relationship's taken on a whole different thing.
Right, your definition of it is different.
My definition of marriage, it's still that.
Yeah.
So it's like,
but like,
am I getting married again?
Yeah, like
there's no more kids coming. So.
You've been there, done that.
Yeah.
Right, kind of thing. Yeah, you've been there, done that. So like, with that perception, or with that view, right? As you come out and you go into the dating pool, I mean, obviously, that want of marriage, kids, right? Those are really within age groups of women, right? I mean, the younger women are not interested in that per se, right? But the later on, I'd say, and don't quote me, right? But later on in their late 20s, mid to late 20s, you're quoting me. Okay, you quote me, right? I'll probably get a whole bunch of comments on that one. But let's say mid 20s to late 30s, right? 30s onward, women are more looking for that marriage, children kind of vibe, right? So when you came out and you went into the dating pool, or what was kind of like your first experience in like meeting someone and like going out, and what was your experience in going through that? The other follow-up question is going to be, how was she in regards to you, like given your background and what you've been through? Like, because I think that's always a challenge, it's meeting of the minds and what's being looked for? Because you're at a certain point.
Man, it's expectations. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's expectations. Like after the chaos part, and then you start settling down and you start, dating, the expectations, right? So, like I said, I've already done some things, and that part of my life is over. Doesn't mean that I'm not thinking about settling down, because I figure even at that point, I'll figure at some point I will.
Right.
But then you're dating someone that may not have had that experience. That may not have gone through marriage.
Right.
And maybe that's what they're looking for.
Right.
Or if she's a little younger, then she wants the family and stuff. And it's like, I did that. Right. So those are challenges, because you have to make sure that if you're going to be serious, if you're going to treat somebody seriously, then your expectations have to align.
So did you find a difference between, you're a handsome dude, right? Like, I'm sure you have a range of ages that you've dated, right? Coming out and building yourself back up, right? And being successful and doing all these things. So you have a range that you've dated in different age groups of women. Would you say, from your experience, there's a clear difference between younger women's expectations and older women's expectations? And when I say younger, when I say younger, older, I'm not giving an age group, okay? I'm not giving an age group, because that's everyone's own perception of what young is and what old is. So in your personal young, old, and I don't need to know the age numbers for that, but did you see a clear difference between the younger and older expectations? And what was an example of something you saw that were like a younger female was like, I'm looking for this, and an older female was more like, I'm looking for that?
Oh, well, you find a range. So what happens is different people have different expectations. So it wasn't like if a woman has been married before, then their expectations are going to be a little different, but maybe the woman has never been married and doesn't have children. And maybe she's older, but she still wants that. Right? And then you're like, no, right? And so, but one of the things I do have to say, at our age, nobody cares about our relationships, right? And they probably shouldn't. The relationships that are to be nurtured and everybody should care about are relationship between young people, because that has an impact on society. When two 20-something-year-olds get together and start a family and have children, that has an impact on society. It has an impact on the economy, impact on universities, schools. There's books to buy, there's toys, it has a real impact.
A whole economic impact.
There's a whole impact. And so that's why when young people get married, it's to be celebrated. Spend all kinds of money, and two 50-year-olds getting married. That's like a lot of money going to any look.
That's like a Vegas backyard.
That's like go somewhere.
Just go in the backyard.
Because there's no there's not a big impact to society. Not as big of an impact to society
economically. Yes.
So that's where I am now. I'm on the side where, and plus, we're older. And nobody's gonna cry for us in our relationship. Like if our old asses haven't figured this thing out, people are gonna be like, that's pathetic.
Yeah.
But if young people, we gotta fix their relationships. They're the relationships that's gonna mold society.
Right.
We gotta make sure young men and women are getting together. So for me coming out, I didn't want to interrupt that. I don't want to go into a relationship with a young woman who should be on that journey, right? Find somebody closer to her, should be on that journey, and finding someone and getting married and making that big impact in society. I never wanted to interrupt that. Right? Only in cases where that's not what she wants at all.
Right.
But no, I don't. I stay away from that. So now, if you're talking about somebody, post 40, post 45 or something, or 45, I should say, we can do some things.
Right.
It's going to be different from the things that the younger people. I mean, we can build a business, we can go to, we can conquer the world. You know what I mean? Like we can go out there, Bonnie and Clyde this thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like we can really get this thing done because the other part is done. So now we can.
It's that similar life journey where they are, right?
It's like, what do we want to do today? Let's take over the world. Okay, let's take over.
Right.
Fuck it.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? Like, let's do that, because we don't have all the other stuff that we're trying to do. We're not both 25 or in our 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a difference.
Yeah, my experience was, So I came out and you took the time to kind of figure out yourself, right? As you do in any scenario, especially divorce and all those things. And after kind of figuring out, you know what, I would back up. I wouldn't even say I figured it out, right? I think you get to a point where you're like, I got to get out. I got to be social, okay? And then you start meeting women, you know, and you start meeting women of all backgrounds and age groups, right? And you start to see a pattern in the views and the expectations of what they want. I remember going on like one of the first couple dates, right, with someone that I met, and we went on 2 dates, right? First one was more like, hey, you know, just meet, and it was cool. And we met again on the second one, and she had kids already, right? Divorced already. She'd been through a divorce and had children already. And her view on life and where she wanted to go was sort of, she wanted to continue that journey, but just with someone new, right? Continue the family, you know, let's hang out and let's go garden, right? Like things like that, you know, which is fine. I've been on dates with girls that were just about, they're still trying to figure out life as well. And there's nothing formal that they're looking for. They're just out there, right? And neither of those scenarios, and those are 2 examples, neither of those 2 scenarios were wrong for me. What I needed to do was find out, what do I want, right? And I think a lot of times when you come out of relationships that you were in, you're so conformed to that relationship that when you go for your next one, you're trying to fit that into the last one that you just came out of. So I had to take some time to figure out, wait, hold on a sec, like, what the fuck do I really want, right? In my next relationship? Do I just want someone who's going to cook and hang out with me and crack jokes? Do I want someone who's going to help me with my businesses, that's going to travel with me? Do I want someone who wants to sit and watch First 48 all day? I mean, like, there's a time where you need to really assess what you want for a relationship, and not the cookie cutter, you know, it needs to fit into this or fit into that and fit into this. So I went on a few dates post my divorce. And I was like, this is a shit show, right? Right? I was like, this is a shit show. Because you start to question, am I looking for like a unicorn here? Because the things that I wanted, I'm like, this is like unicorn shit, right? Because all the stuff I'm looking for, you know, and I'm not saying there's like a laundry list. Okay, there's a laundry list. There's a laundry list. Okay. But this is you coming out, really understanding your value, really understanding what you deliver, how you are as a person. And I think a lot of men shortchange themselves, number one, right? Shortchange themselves believing or thinking, oh, I'm asking too much, or I want too much. And the simple answer is no, right? When you clearly understand the value that you bring to the table and what you provide as a man, your laundry list of things, and when I say laundry list, I don't care how you take it, right? Your list of requirements that you look for in a female, they can be however long you need it to be. The right female who is made, the right female that is there for you will accommodate it, right? So my takeaway was, I think when you come out, you date a few people, you realize it's a shit show, you take a step back. That's what I ended up doing. I took a step back off the dating scene. I'm like, none of this is what I want, right? And when I look back to my laundry list of things, I'm like, you know what? I'm not shortchanging any of this shit. She has to fill and fit and check off every one of these things. And if she cannot fit and check off every one of these things, I don't care, right? This is not a desperation, an act of desperation. And a lot of men come out of divorces and come out of long-term relationships and just get back into the next one because of desperation and because of loneliness, right? Being alone is not loneliness, right? I mean, and a lot of people mistake the two. I'm alone 80% of my time, I'd say, right? Lonely? Hell fucking no, right? So when I go back and I look at, well, who would I share my lifestyle with? And what am I willing to accommodate? I'm like, I'm not accommodating shit, right? I'm not accommodating anything, right? I'm being very frank. I'm not accommodating anything. This is the laundry list of things that she needs to fit into. And what you learn to see is that you will meet women that are willing to accommodate it, right? It's this fictitious belief that they don't exist out there. They actually do exist. And I've met through my dating scenario, I've met some great women and some great people that surprisingly, that laundry list, they're like, okay, no problem, not an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And then you meet women who have like the first two on your list, they're like, nah, fuck no, I can't do that. Right? And you're like, bro, like what? So there's this far left field view that makes you believe, you know, you need to tolerate or accommodate. And that's totally untrue.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in relationships and in scenarios with great women that you'll have a laundry list of things and they're like, not a problem, not a problem, not a problem. And you see the difference. So it's 100% a shit show, but that shouldn't deter you from being firm on what your wants are and what your needs are, because everyone's different relationship-wise. And what I'm saying is not for every guy, right? Some people may want to get back into a relationship and get married and have more kids. Some guys do that. Some guys want to just have threesomes all day with their wife, like with their girlfriend. Like whatever the choice is, fine. But the key is know what you want and find the person that will accommodate it. And don't shortchange yourself to settle for something less, because you end up living another round of unhappiness. And we tend to always pick the low-hanging fruit, you know, low-hanging fruit. You're going to pick the thing that's closest to you because it's easy to reach. No, don't do that, right? You know, that unicorn is at the top of the tree. Climb the fucking tree. Get to the top of the tree because it's actually there. But we pick this low-hanging fruit because it's easy. Like, she'll do it, but, you know, and then so I picked this one. And then they end up repeating the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah, but are these things that you have non-negotiables?
What do you mean?
Your list, is it non-negotiable? Is there anything on that list that can be negotiable? See?
Well, it depends, right? It depends. I mean, things are always negotiable. But the key factor is, though, do you even have a list? You know, and many guys don't have a list. They just have this Hollywood definition of what a relationship should be, which is not their definition. It's the Hollywood version. I want to pull up everyone back here. Everything you know about romance and everything you've learned about romance, everything has came from Hollywood. Am I wrong? Right? Everything. It's a show. It's a movie. It's everything you've learned from it is from a Hollywood. There are two areas of romance, or home, or your parents.
Or your parents are just being socialized. So it's not just Hollywood. Hollywood is your parents. It's the books you read, you know.
If you read
Snow White, you know, when you were little, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff. Princes.
I mean, we've all been indoctrinated into this, like, princess Hollywood. This is what should be, this is what should happen, this is how the guy should be, this is how we've all been indoctrinated in that, right from the time we were young, little, and then we end up growing up into these men with this sense of this is how it should be, and women grow up with that sense like this is how it's supposed to be, and it's crash and burn after that, because then the realization that no, this is not factual, this is not actually how it works. I mean, that's the realization that I got from it. So I'm like, you know what? Fuck all of this shit, right? I'm not following any of this. These are the things that I'm looking for. Are they negotiable? No, that's a hard no, right? No, they're not negotiable. So, example for me, I love to travel. Okay? So whoever I meet, you have to be able to travel. It's not a negotiation. It's not a, well, I don't, maybe, there's no negotiation. There's zero negotiation. And I think there are key things that make you up, that make you a person that you shouldn't negotiate. You know, you shouldn't be willing to negotiate. And the people that really care for you or are really interested in you will accommodate that request. Like they'll be like, okay, if that's what you, if my relationship with you is that important, then yes, I will do it, right?
here I'm a little different in that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. If I have I have some non-negotiables and I have some negotiables.
Okay.
But on the non-negotiables, I don't want to make somebody do something. If you're not that type of person, then it's gonna be a struggle for you to keep and be as enthusiastic as I am with something.
Right.
And it's the same both ways, whether it's men or women. Like, I want to find the person that's that person.
Right.
So that's what I'm looking for. You know, that authenticity. That's what I want.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't move and do the things I want and then reluctantly drag somebody along with me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
No dragging.
there's no dragging.
Yeah, no dragging.
And it's the same with her. So for me, the purpose of being in a relationship is for two people to make each other better people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's my thing.
Mm-hmm.
If she can make me a better person, I can make her better. If I can't do anything for her to make her better in any way, shape, or form in her life, then I'm not the person for her.
Right. 100%. 100%.
I don't care how well we get along. I don't care how good the dating is. I really can't make you a better person in some way, shape, or form, and it's not.
Right.
I'm not there. So
you enjoy mentoring and enjoy like leading them and showing them.
Well, it's the same, right? I mean, it can be little things, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I used to live in DC many years ago, and I was single before marriage and all that.
Mm.
And I was dating someone that I met at, I think it was at a happy hour or something. She was beautiful, man.
Mm-hmm.
So we started dating, and she had this way of, and because I was working so much, you know, I'd be a little stressed.
Mm-hmm.
And she had this way of just bringing me down like notches immediately. And I didn't like that she had so much control, but it was cool. It was cool because she could just bring me down. She just look into my eyes and hold my hand. What were you saying? And then everything would just, and I'll be ready to go.
That was your kryptonite.
That was my kryptonite.
Yeah.
But she made me a better person, right? So it doesn't have to be anything extraordinary, but she made me a better person. Around her, I could focus. I was, you know.
Right.
So she bring me down. She made me a better person. And she was, matter of fact, she was so good at it that I started to be like, man, what is her angles? Like, she's going out, like, what's she trying to get out of here? Like, she treated me a little too good. Like, it was so, and it was just.
But that was it. So hold on, wait. I want to ask this again. I want to dig deeper into that. I mean, what you mentioned that she did, as simple as it sounds, right? I mean, look how much that helped you, right? And again, these are the things that when I go back to my comment around this Hollywood definition of relationship, that means that little gesture that she was doing to you by just bringing you down and asking you, hey, are you okay? Or you good? Or helping you come off of that and bringing you down those levels. The simple action that she did in that, look how much you valued that. Right?
Absolutely. That was peace around the house. You know, that was peace around my place. We didn't live together, but she would come over and she would do this. So that's just an example of, you know, it doesn't have to be anything humongous, but two people dating, they should make each other better people in some way, shape, or form. It can be a myriad of things. But in my view, that's for me, it has to be that way. If we don't bring anything to each other, like if we're just having a good time, I'm not just going to be sitting around, because, you know, all that lovey-dovey sitting around the couch, I mean, that fades over time. Right. There has to be another thing. Another thing.
The chemistry, I mean, when you talk about chemistry and connection, that's kind of what you're looking
but you gotta do shit. We have to be better. Like, maybe she's starting a business and I can help her in her business, or maybe, you know, something has to improve. If you're with me or if I'm with somebody, if your life doesn't improve, then we're wasting our time here.
Right.
If we're not improving as people. But as far as your negotiables are concerned, the negotiable and non-negotiable, I think we all have them.
Yeah.
So peace is one of my things. Like, I don't like people to bring chaos.
Yeah. So drama. No drama.
I don't like a lot of drama. You know, all that drama and chaos. Let's stay away from that.
Yeah.
I mean, we can have fun with all that. That's right. That's one of my non-negotiables.
So peace.
Oh yeah, and drama. Listen, if you're stressed out over a relationship at this point, at this age, great. I mean, you start to take you start to take some days off my life.
Yeah. I mean, and that's any relationship. Any type of ship, we call it, right? Any kind of relationship, situationship, friendship, any of those ships. None of those should be bringing you that level of anxiety and stress, right? They all should be bringing you that sense of peace and that sense of fulfillment. right? When you think of like your great relationship with your friends, you know, your friends from back in the days and whatever, the reason why you're great friends is because of that relationship you have where it's open, it's safe, and they'll check you. You know, they'll check you meaning like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? You know, and it's a safe space enough for them to say that and you not even be offended by it. And I think in all those ships that you build, the peace and the safeness are like the key things. And if a lot of folks focused on that as a requirement, as a non-negotiable in their relationships, their relationships would be a lot happier and a lot more fulfilling at the end of the day, you know? And I think the lesson out of all of this stuff, you know, going through relationships and divorce or whatever, I'd say the lesson for me out of all of it was learning what that list was and learning what was not a negotiable, you know, and what was, yes, this, okay, these ones maybe we could talk about, but these ones, fuck no, we're not negotiating this. And if it doesn't work or it doesn't fit you, sayonara, right? And I think those are the key things that when you have these life lessons is when you reflect back on it, it's to really look and say to yourself, A, what did I learn from this? And how do I take this going forward? And for me, it was learning what that list was and what I was willing to take forward and what I was willing to sort of revise and say, you know what, that's not really important. You know, for example, physical attraction, right? Before you would have looked at that and had that as like, this is a high up there and there's got to be this. But then as you go through tough relationships and you come out on the other end, you realize, yeah, that's important. But that other piece, the peace and the safeness and the support, right? Those are actually a lot more appreciated, right? Because, I mean, honestly, you can go out there and you can find physical chemistry anywhere. Like those things are easy, you know? The hard shit is finding people that have these other criterias that fulfill you. And then you knowing what it is that fulfills you and saying to yourself, if it doesn't fulfill me, I'm not willing to accept it. Even if the physical is great, even if the chemistry is great, even if, right? Because those are all things that are great, but there may not be your like criteria of your non-negotiables.
It may not be. Another thing that I look for is, what are we gonna do? So when I was married, you know, you have your first child, there's a level of focus, right? Is it gonna be a boy or girl? What's the room gonna look like? We gotta paint the room, we gotta get the furniture. There's a level of focus and there's a level of, or for me, there was a level of partnership and working together and getting things done. When you are focused on a goal with someone else and you guys can work well together, that's when you get along the best. I mean, that's when things get done. Right. You talk all the time, you communicate all the time. I mean, it's just things get done and things move along.
There's a synergy.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's when you don't have that things start to get, you know, when things are quiet and nothing's kind of going on, it's like
the awkward silence.
Yeah, it's like you when you don't have any goals and you're just living day to day, and that's one of the things I noticed. I was like, we have
partner goals, like partner goals.
Yes,
yeah, partner.
And I think those are important. Yeah. If you don't have those, or for me anyway, if I don't have that, then there's an issue. So my thing is, you know, a good fit is somebody that wants to do something. Maybe we want to start a nonprofit. Maybe we want to start volunteering our time and helping those less fortunate, you know, here or in another part of the world. But we have to have something that we're doing together. We have to be working towards something that's bigger than ourselves. It kind of helps to keep, you know,
there has to be a bigger purpose.
It has to be a bigger purpose. So it may be something that she's doing. Maybe she's in a nonprofit. I'm like, man, I always wanted to, you know, help people at this level. You know, let me jump into that. Now we're both doing it. Hey, why don't we start our own foundation and help these kids? Or maybe it's education. You know, like all of these things, when there's something that we can do together, to me, that's part of the glue that keeps it together. It's not just all the other things. It's what is our goal? What are we trying to do? Like, we're sitting on this planet and we're just, you know, we can't just stare into each other's eyes and talk about how we love each other every day. Like, what are we trying to do? What are we working towards? And that's one of the glues that keep it together. Do we want to start a business? Hey, I want to start I want to, you know.
But that's a good segue into this question.
Because you're not going to be sitting around just doing nothing. Like you're not going to be sitting around with me doing nothing. We have to have something.
You have to do something. Yeah, right. So here's the question then. When you look for when you know that you need to do things and you need to do, and then you know what you enjoy, where and how, like what advice can you give to people on, like where do you go to find that? You know what I mean? Like you can't you can't go on Tinder and there isn't like there isn't a filter on Tinder that has like nonprofit.
Yeah, no.
Like there isn't you know what I mean? So like
that's not something you work out while you're taking your shirt off. Hey, what do you think about
so
taking your clothes off?
I think it's important for like people to know as you work through finding what you want, being able to be in this all ties back to our early start of the conversation. How do you tie this back to the environments, and how do you tie this back to getting exposure to that level of people? Because, you know, those dating sites don't have those kinds of filters to be able to find those kinds of people.
That's where you got to get out here.
Right.
That's where you have to get out here. Like, let's say your thing is fashion and you're in fashion. Well, you should be in New York at Fashion Week.
Right.
You should be at all the places where people,
you're going to meet. Yeah.
And then you can meet somebody who is in that world and that might meet some of those other non-negotiables. Like, okay, this is a good fit, right? Like, this is a good fit. It could be anything, right? But you have to get out in those
environments. Yeah, you got to go to the environment. Yeah, and that's I think that's the key message, right? For people to understand, you're not going to find the people that you need. You're not going to find your tribe sitting at home, right? You're not going to find your tribe. If you want people that like to play pool, you're not going to find those people at the car wash. Like, that's not how it works. I remember talking to a girlfriend of mine, and she said, Fabian, whoever you meet has to love to travel, right? And I'm like, well, what the hell am I going to meet them, right? You know where you meet them? You meet them in the airport lounge, right? So that's an example where you're not going to meet them at the spot downtown at 3:00 in the morning, right? Those people are catching a flight the next day. They're not out at the bar, right? So the importance of you putting yourself in the environments, right? Because the environment breeds the people that you need or you require. It's the environments that do it. So if you want someone that's into styling and you need to be there, right? If you want someone that's into culture and food, then you need to be at, the markets. You need to be at the food tasting places, cheese and wine. Like, that's where you need to be. You're not going to find those people sitting, and I'm not knocking people that go to the bar or go wherever, but if you want people that like to do that, go there. You'll find them there. But don't expect to find someone that likes XYZ and trying to find them in 1, 2, 3. Like, that's not going to work.
Yeah. It's another thing is refinement. So everyone has a certain level that they need of somebody to be refined. How refined they are, it kind of differs from person to person. As far as their expectations, I remember when I was young, my dad used to tell me about travel. He used to tell me, this is how you look when you travel, because you never know who you might meet, run into. So it wasn't necessarily a thing of being dressed up when you travel or anything like that, but it's just, even if you're dressed down looking a certain way, because you're in the public and you never know who you might meet, you never know who you may have to speak to, you never know, that kind of thing. So here's the thing. Now you meet somebody, she says, okay, I like to travel, but she doesn't travel like you travel. Meaning she's coming on with the Daisy Dukes on the plane or something, or so, like, you know what I mean? And it's not how you would prefer to move around the planet and travel. Maybe she can do that when she gets there, but maybe that's not how you travel. So there's another level of refinement that we're all looking for that we seem to miss when we're doing it. I mean, I was caught like that one time. I was dating somebody and I went travel. You wore what to the airport? I was like, oh no.
Well, they say when, traveling with someone, whoever you're dating, traveling is where you really get to know them, right? Because that's out of comfort zone, right? That's out of the normal area. So for anyone that wants to go, dating and going to hang out, go to dinner is all great, but take them on a trip. Go on a trip with them, right? Because when you go on a trip, that's when you really see them for themselves, right? That's when they let go. That's when most people come out of their comfort zone. That's where the stress happens. That's where you miss the flight. That's when, and that gets to show you all of the different aspects of the person. So I think it's like actually a very good way to.
Yeah, but what about your level of refinement that you're looking for?
What do you mean?
Just a woman. You get a woman, she's a beautiful woman. What level of refinement are you looking for? How she speaks? How she carries herself?
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. I
She's in a room.
Yes.
Around your family, that kind of thing. Are you looking for a high level of refinement? Are you looking for someone who speaks? Or is that stuff not, or certain things is not important to you?
I think there's some areas in there that are important. Yeah, out of that list. Yeah, I would think so, right? I mean, I travel, I do a lot of businesses. So whoever I'm with, there's a level of refinement, professionalism when it's needed, right? Like, you know how to dress when you're going to a certain place, you know how to act when we're in a certain scenario, right? So yeah, there is all of those things that, refinements that are gonna be required, right? How do you move around in a room with just based on the things that I do? So that's a real key ingredient as well. So again, that list I have, right? That list I have, it's like unicorn, right? Like but again, the takeaway from it is don't shy away from having a unicorn list. You know what I mean? Don't think that it doesn't exist or you can't, it's not achievable. It's all achievable. You have to have the mindset of, this is what I want and this is what I'm willing to accept. And if it doesn't come, I'm not willing to tolerate less or be less satisfied. That's my view on it, right?
So the looks itself won't take you away from that. You'll give up some looks for some of the other stuff.
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. I mean, I think that in my divorce, my ex-wife, the looks is what got me, right? Right? And I misread everything else.
Gotcha.
Right? Exactly, right? I misread everything else because I was so caught up in that. So I got that lesson that it's not all about the looks, right? It's more about, I mean, I'm not saying you're hideous, right? Like we're not going there, right? We're not going there, right? I mean, we're men, like there's a physical, visual attraction we must have. But there's another piece of you that looks at those things, right? The refinement, the accommodation, the peace, right? Those things are higher on the list than the looks. Previously, the looks were, when you're younger, it's more looks. I think that goes for all generations, right? Even the younger generations. For them, it's looks that gets them attracted. They misconstrue everything else underneath it, right? They don't look at anything else. The looks gets you, and then you're in, and then you realize, holy shit, like this is a fucking nightmare, right? But I mean, we all did that at a young age, right? I mean, you're in your early 20s. That's what we all did, right? It was looks that got you, and then you're like, holy shit, man, like I can't believe it. But as you get older, you realize, no, the looks are important, but they're not in the top 3 things. They're in there, but they're not top 3, right? As you get older in your journey and further along, because the ones with, should I say it? The ones with the best looks are the ones with the, I won't say anymore. I won't say anymore, but you get the point. Yeah. You get the point. Don't misconstrue the looks for everything else. You know, it's in there, yes, but it's definitely not the only thing you should be looking at when it comes to both men and female. You know, it's not just, guys looking at girls, but for females too. Don't just look at the guy and be like, oh, he's so handsome, and this guy could be a dick and an asshole. You know what I mean? Like, but you're so caught up in the looks, you bypass all the red flags, and 6 months in, you're like, how did I get here? You got here because you failed to realize the red flags because you were so caught up on look. So that's a lesson for everybody. Age, irrelevant. So the overall thought in writing the series, so these are a series of books. This first series is just really around traveling and people that you've met or people that I've met through my travels, what I've learned, some self-reflections. And the reason why I think this is important is, as we go through trauma, regardless of what the trauma is, as we go through life and go through different things, the importance of you being able to disconnect, detach, and reconnect with yourself. Traveling was one of my prescriptions that actually worked very, very well. And through the places I've been, so in total, I've been to, I think, 28 countries so far, right? And I didn't go through all of them through my divorce, but throughout my life, I realized how important it was while I was married, how important it was during my divorce, and how important traveling was after my divorce. And even up to now, how important it is for travel. So the book, which is a mini series, sort of like a self-help book, it's really describing the places that I've been, the people that I met, the lessons I learned, and a little bit about each of their cultures, right? Brazil, Mexico, Thailand, Colombia. And it really talks about not just how it was from a traveler's perspective, but also from a person who came from the outside, wounded, right? Wounded. Mm-hmm. And was able to find a place of sanctuary in these places where the importance of what you had, the importance of the things you had back home were irrelevant, right? It was merely on, here you are in a new place, here are some new people, here are their lifestyles and their lessons that they learned. And when I would share my story about my divorce and kids and what I've been through and how my divorce happened, to all the people I put in the book, I captured some of their responses and I captured some of their guidance that they've given me, you know? And when originally, actually, we were gonna put together, I was gonna write a book just on my divorce. Mm-hmm. And when I started, it was funny because I was in Colombia and I was talking to a friend of mine and he was like, Faye, bro, your life is so more interesting than just your divorce. It's just a chapter in the life. It's not your life. You've done so many other things. You've exposed and experienced so much other things in life. You raised a great family. You raised great children. The story needs to be broader than just the divorce. So this series just talks about traveling through traumatic experiences. The other series will cover dating, relocating, going through traumatic experiences. So really, it's about empowering you to do things during traumatic experiences, and how you cope with it, the people you meet along the journey, and how those people inspired you to either keep going or maybe look at things a little different than your own perspective. Because you're limited by your environment, right? As we circle back to this environment thing so heavily. If you are going through trauma or going through a bad experience or a tough experience, and you're only dealing with it from the environment that dealt it to you, you're only gonna learn so much, you're only gonna get taught through it so much. But when you take yourself out of that environment and go into a new environment, and you bring that experience with you, the results are totally different. The perspective is different. Your goals become different. And I remember going, as I said, on my first trip and I was like, no, I don't want to buy another house. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want another 25-year mortgage, right? I want a condo on the beach, right? And I'm looking for that. Why do I need a car? You know what I mean? Like, those are the things that you start rethinking. Like, why do I need to drive a fucking car? I can just Uber where I need to go, right? So anyway, this book series covers the traveling piece. The other ones will come where we continue to help folks navigate their life challenges and struggles. We'll bring on more guests to talk through and give their experience and kind of share my perspective from my personal experience. Obviously, bring great guests like Steve on to talk through their experiences and what they have and what they learned, and hopefully continue to share the journey. So that's why the book has been written.